25 Black Celebrities Who Battled HIV/AIDS and Lost the Fight Then and Now 2025. Imagine building a legacy that changed music, sports, art, and still being forgotten because of a virus wrapped in fear and stigma. In today's video, we expose the powerful, heartbreaking stories of 25 Black celebrities who battled HIV/AIDS and lost their fight. These were pioneers who shattered barriers, set stages on fire, and inspired millions, yet many were erased, misunderstood, or ignored when the world needed to listen most. Their stories aren't just history, they're a warning, a testament, and a call for action. How many more voices must we lose before society truly changes? If you believe their legacies deserve the spotlight, make sure you like this video, drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to Legends of Black Excellence. Together, we can honor the brilliance they gave us, and ensure they are never forgotten again. Kevin Peter Hall, Tuoi Kai Mat, 35 to 1991. Standing at an imposing 7 feet 2 inches, Kevin Peter Hall was Hollywood's favorite giant, breathing life into unforgettable characters like the Predator and the towering Bigfoot in Harry and the Hendersons. His towering frame and graceful physicality allowed him to dominate the screen without ever uttering a word. Yet, behind the heavy costumes and thrilling performances, Hall faced a tragedy that fame could not shield him from. In 1987, a car accident changed his life in ways he could never have predicted. Following surgery, Hall required a blood transfusion. Unfortunately, at that time, HIV screening of blood donations was still unreliable. Unbeknownst to him, the transfusion carried the virus that would ultimately claim his life. Despite the growing danger within, Hall continued to work tirelessly, completing projects like Predator 2 with extraordinary professionalism even as his health began to deteriorate. By early 1991, Hall's once vibrant energy had visibly diminished. Refusing to let stigma silence him, he publicly revealed his diagnosis, hoping to raise awareness and combat misinformation surrounding HIV/AIDS. However, Hollywood's support quickly evaporated. Roles dried up, calls stopped coming, and the film industry, once enamored with his talents, turned a cold shoulder. Throughout his final months, Hall found strength in his marriage to actress Elena Reed Hall, best known for 227 and Sesame Street. Together, they faced the illness with dignity and courage. On April 10, 1991, Kevin Peter Hall passed away at the age of 35 from AIDS-related pneumonia. His death was barely acknowledged by the industry he had so greatly contributed to. Today, Hall's legacy endures not only through his memorable performances but also through his bravery in confronting a devastating illness at a time when society preferred to look away. Every time audiences marvel at the Predator's menacing presence, they are witnessing the extraordinary spirit of a man who refused to be defined by tragedy. Ron Vawter, Tuoi Kai Mat, 45 to 1994. Ron Vawter was an exceptional force in experimental theater, blending intellect, vulnerability, and fierce dedication to the craft. As a core member of the Wooster Group, Vawter pushed artistic boundaries, portraying complex, often controversial characters with startling authenticity. Yet his most profound performance was not scripted, it was the courageous confrontation of his own mortality following his HIV diagnosis. In the early 1980s, amid New York's vibrant yet precarious theater scene, Vawter likely contracted the virus. As AIDS devastated the arts community, he watched friends and colleagues vanish one by one. Refusing to retreat into silence, Vawter transformed his illness into art. His landmark solo piece, Roy Cohn/Jack Smith, juxtaposed two men, one a notorious lawyer who persecuted LGBTQ+ individuals while secretly dying of AIDS, the other a flamboyant performance artist openly living his truth. By 1992, the physical signs of Vawter's illness, weight loss, lesions, frailty, became impossible to hide. Nevertheless, he continued performing, even when exhaustion made standing difficult. During his European tour in 1993, audiences witnessed not just a character, but a man fearlessly exposing his own decline to dismantle societal shame surrounding the disease. On April 7, 1994, Ron Vawter died at age 45, a revolutionary figure whose final acts were unapologetic declarations of humanity. Unlike many celebrities of the era, Vawter did not allow stigma to dictate his narrative. Instead, he used his remaining time to confront hypocrisy, celebrate authenticity, and demand empathy for those suffering in silence. Today, his influence lingers in avant-garde theater and in the continuing fight against HIV/AIDS stigma. Vawter remains a beacon for artists who understand that true courage sometimes means revealing your most vulnerable self to a world that may not be ready to see it. Eric Wright, Eazy-E, Tuoi Kai Mat, 30 to 1995. Eric Wright, famously known as Eazy-E, revolutionized music by giving raw voice to urban struggle through his pioneering work with NWA. Hailing from Compton, California, he earned the nickname Godfather of Gangsta Rap by unapologetically narrating the realities of inner-city life. Yet behind the bravado, fast cars, and platinum records, Eazy-E's real battle would emerge not in the streets, but within his own body. Living fast and thriving in the hedonistic world of hip-hop fame, Wright unknowingly placed himself at risk during a time when public understanding of HIV/AIDS was still steeped in misinformation and prejudice. In early 1995, after suffering a persistent cough, he checked into Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. Doctors initially suspected asthma or pneumonia, but shocking tests revealed he had full-blown AIDS. Rather than retreat into denial, Eazy-E stunned the public by addressing his diagnosis head-on. In a heartfelt statement released just 10 days before his death, he urged young people to practice safer lifestyles and acknowledged that anyone, regardless of fame, fortune, or toughness, could fall victim to the disease. On March 26, 1995, Eric Wright died at the age of 30. His sudden death sent shockwaves throughout the hip-hop community, shattering stereotypes that AIDS was confined to a specific demographic. Eazy-E's loss also sparked important conversations within the industry about health, sexuality, and personal responsibility, topics rarely addressed in rap at that time. Though he lived a life marked by controversy and defiance, Wright's final days revealed a vulnerability and bravery that redefined his legacy. Today, Eazy-E is remembered not only for his seismic contributions to music but also for his unexpected role in humanizing the HIV/AIDS crisis for a generation that had long believed it could never touch them. Assata Saint, Tuoy Kai Mat, 36 to 1994. Assata Saint was a fearless voice during one of the darkest periods for the Black LGBTQ+ community, a poet and activist who refused to let silence or shame dictate his life or his art. Born Yves-François Lubin in Haiti in 1957, Saint immigrated to the United States as a child, later adopting his bold pseudonym, a nod to a Haitian drum and a Catholic saint, as a statement of cultural fusion and defiance. Throughout the 1980s and early 1990s, Saint emerged as a powerful literary and performance figure, confronting the twin oppressions of racism and homophobia with unapologetic ferocity. His poetry collections, including Writings in the Margin, delivered searing meditations on love, loss, and survival amidst the ravages of the AIDS epidemic. He was also a founding member of Other Countries, a groundbreaking collective for Black gay writers, amplifying voices long marginalized in American letters. Saint did not merely chronicle the devastation AIDS wrought on his community, he lived it intimately. As friends and lovers succumbed to the virus, he transformed grief into activism, organizing performances and publishing anthologies that bore witness to their struggles and humanity. His work served as both documentation and resistance, ensuring that Black gay men would not vanish without record. In the early 1990s, Saint publicly disclosed his own HIV-positive status, an act of immense courage at a time when such admissions invited discrimination, isolation, and death threats. Refusing to retreat, he continued writing and performing until his health severely declined. On June 29, 1994, Assata Saint passed away at the age of 36. Though his life was tragically short, his influence endures in every artist and activist who dares to challenge silence with truth. Saint's legacy is a testament to the transformative power of art in the face of erasure. Jean Anthony Ray, Tuoy Kai Mat, 41 to 2003. Jean Anthony Ray embodied the raw, electric energy of New York City's streets. Bursting onto the scene in 1980 as the charismatic Leroy Johnson in Fame, Ray became a global sensation almost overnight. His ferocious dance style, full of grit, swagger, and soul, broke through classically trained norms, offering an authenticity rarely seen on screen at the time. Born and raised in Harlem, Ray had little formal training compared to his co-stars but possessed an undeniable gift. Fame, however, proved to be a double-edged sword. The spotlight exposed him to a fast-paced life of partying and impulsive decisions. After the success of the Fame film, he reprised his role in the television series, but clashes with producers and personal struggles, including substance abuse, gradually derailed his once promising career. Behind his dazzling performances, Ray battled deeper vulnerabilities. As an openly gay Black man during the peak of the AIDS crisis, he navigated a world rife with prejudice, judgment, and misinformation. While he kept much of his personal life private, it became clear in the late 1990s that his health was rapidly declining. By the early 2000s, complications related to HIV, AIDS, and a subsequent stroke left him increasingly frail. On November 14, 2003, Jean Anthony Ray passed away at the age of 41. His death came quietly, overshadowed by the years of obscurity that followed his initial fame. Despite the chaos of his personal life, Ray's talent remains unforgettable. His unapologetic expression of freedom, sexuality, and raw emotion helped pave the way for greater diversity and authenticity in performing arts. Today, whenever a young dancer dares to break the mold, move with uninhibited soul, and embrace their true identity, they follow a path that Jean Anthony Ray blazed through pure, unstoppable passion. Essex Hemphill, Tuoi Kai Mat, 38–1995. Essex Hemphill was a revolutionary poet whose voice carved a space for black gay men long ignored by mainstream literature. Born in Chicago in 1957 and raised in Washington, D.C., Hemphill used poetry to confront the intersections of race, sexuality, and systemic oppression with unapologetic honesty. His work captured the agony, resilience, and hope of an entire generation devastated by the AIDS epidemic. Through collections like Ceremonies and contributions to Tongues Untied, Hemphill's words ignited powerful dialogues about identity, erasure, and survival. His poetry was raw, intimate, and political, refusing to sugarcoat the realities faced by black queer bodies in America. At a time when mainstream narratives about AIDS centered almost exclusively on white gay men, Hemphill exposed how racism and neglect exacerbated the suffering of black communities. Hemphill was not just a writer, he was an activist, a truth-teller, and a symbol of resistance. He helped found Other Countries, a collective dedicated to amplifying the voices of black LGBTQ+ writers. He also collaborated with pioneering filmmaker Marlon Riggs, further intertwining activism with art in the fight against silence and invisibility. By the early 1990s, Hemphill himself began to experience the devastating effects of HIV/AIDS. His once commanding physical presence weakened, but his pen remained unyielding. Even as he grew sicker, he refused to retreat, continuing to perform, publish, and challenge institutions that sought to erase men like him. On November 4, 1995, Essex Hemphill passed away at the age of 38. His death was a profound loss, but his legacy endures wherever marginalized communities use art to assert their existence. Essex Hemphill's work remains a rallying cry, a reminder that silence equals death, and that truth, spoken boldly, can outlive even the cruelest epidemics. Howard Rollins, Tuoi Kai Mat, 46–1996. Howard Rollins was a gifted actor whose career once promised to redefine the representation of black talent in Hollywood. Born in Baltimore in 1950, Rollins first gained widespread recognition for his Oscar-nominated role as Coalhouse Walker Jr. in Ragtime, 1981, where his commanding presence and emotional depth captivated critics and audiences alike. His subsequent work on television, most notably as Virgil Tibbs in the Heat of the Night, further cemented his status as a trailblazer. Behind the polished performances, however, Rollins lived a life of painful duality. As a closeted gay man in a fiercely conservative industry, he was forced to navigate the suffocating expectations of Hollywood while concealing his true self. His private struggles intensified during the 1980s when the AIDS crisis began devastating the LGBTQ+ community. Fear of exposure combined with internalized stigma pushed Rollins into a spiral of substance abuse and depression. Although outwardly celebrated, the pressures mounted silently. In the late 1980s, rumors about his declining health and professional instability swirled. His once steady career faltered, and by the early 1990s, he was quietly dismissed from In the Heat of the Night as his HIV-related complications worsened. Hollywood, notorious for its brutal treatment of vulnerable stars, swiftly turned its back. On December 8, 1996, Howard Rollins died of complications from AIDS-related lymphoma at the age of 46. His passing was largely overlooked by an industry that had once hailed him as a symbol of progress. Nevertheless, Rollins' legacy endures. He shattered barriers for black actors, portraying nuanced, dignified characters in an era when such roles were rare. His courage in the face of personal and societal adversity stands as a sobering reminder of how much was lost during the AIDS epidemic, not just lives, but voices that could have reshaped an entire industry. Willie Donald Smith, Willie Smith, Tuoi Kai Mat, 39–1987. Willie Smith was more than a designer. He was a revolutionary force who transformed American fashion by bringing streetwear into the realm of haute couture. Born in Philadelphia in 1948, Smith studied at the Parsons School of Design before launching Willie Wear Limited in 1976. His vision was groundbreaking, clothing that blended accessibility, comfort, and avant-garde aesthetics, long before the term streetwear became mainstream. During the late 1970s and early 1980s, Smith's colorful, relaxed designs disrupted the fashion world's elitism. He collaborated with artists, dancers, and architects, weaving diverse cultural influences into his collections. His approach celebrated urban life, youth culture, and multiculturalism, making fashion democratic rather than exclusive. However, while his professional star rose, his personal life was shadowed by the growing HIV/AIDS epidemic. As a gay black man in an industry that thrived on appearance and image, Smith faced a cruel paradox. When he fell ill in 1986 with pneumonia, a common opportunistic infection among AIDS patients, he chose to keep his diagnosis private, fearing that knowledge of his illness would lead to professional exile. On April 17, 1987, Willie Smith died at the age of 39 after contracting Shigella and pneumonia linked to AIDS-related complications. His death shocked the fashion world but was initially sanitized. Obituaries largely avoided mentioning the disease that claimed his life, reflecting the pervasive stigma of the era. Despite his premature passing, Smith's influence remains indelible. His work anticipated the fusion of art, culture, and fashion that dominates today's industry. Willie wear became a blueprint for inclusivity, decades before the fashion world would openly embrace diversity. Today, as streetwear commands runways and youth culture shapes luxury branding, Willie Smith's fingerprints are everywhere, a testament to a visionary silence too soon. Reggie White, Tuoi Kai Mat, 43 to 2004, V. Ben Tim, Kong Phi HIV/AIDS. Reggie White, often nicknamed the Minister of Defense, remains one of the most revered figures in NFL history. Born on December 19, 1961, in Chattanooga, Tennessee, White combined extraordinary athletic prowess with deep religious faith, creating a legacy that transcended football. Over a 15-year career, he amassed 198 sacks, one of the highest totals ever recorded, earning multiple Defensive Player of the Year awards and cementing his place in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. White's impact extended far beyond the gridiron. As an ordained minister, he frequently used his public platform to advocate for spiritual and community causes, seamlessly blending sports celebrity with moral leadership. His tenure with the Philadelphia Eagles and later the Green Bay Packers was marked by dominance, resilience, and a reputation as a consummate team leader. Despite his towering success, White faced serious health issues in retirement. Known for his massive frame and intense playing style, he developed sleep apnea, a condition that disrupts breathing during sleep and places severe strain on the heart. This disorder, compounded by sarcoidosis, an inflammatory disease, contributed to his early death. On December 26, 2004, Reggie White passed away unexpectedly at the age of 43 due to cardiac arrhythmia associated with sleep apnea and respiratory complications, not HIV/AIDS, despite confusion from some later sources. His death sent shockwaves through the sports world, highlighting the overlooked dangers of sleep disorders, particularly among former athletes. Though White was not a victim of the HIV/AIDS epidemic, his early passing was nonetheless a stark reminder that physical health, even for the most seemingly invincible athletes, is fragile. His legacy lives on through the Reggie White Sleep Disorders Research and Education Foundation, continuing his life's mission of service, leadership, and inspiration for generations to come. Billy Wright, Tuoi Kai Mat, 73 to 1991. Billy Wright was a seminal yet often overlooked pioneer in the birth of rock and roll. Born on May 21, 1918, in Atlanta, Georgia, Wright captivated audiences in the 1940s and 1950s with his electrifying performances, flamboyant style, and booming, gospel-influenced voice. Long before the genre even had a name, Wright's daring stage presence, marked by heavy makeup, glamorous costumes, and fearless energy, laid the groundwork for the rock revolution to come. Nicknamed the Prince of the Blues, Wright's recordings like Stacked Deck and Hey, Little Girl resonated through jukeboxes and nightclubs across America's segregated South. More importantly, he served as a direct mentor and inspiration to Little Richard, helping him secure his first recording contract and influencing his dynamic style that would later shake the world. Despite his influence, Wright never achieved the widespread mainstream success his protégés enjoyed. Racism, homophobia, and shifting musical tastes marginalized his career just as rock and roll exploded into a global phenomenon. Nevertheless, within the music industry, Wright remained a towering figure, a trailblazer whose contributions were deeply respected by insiders even if overlooked by the broader public. Wright's later years were spent performing in smaller venues around Atlanta, continuing to share his gift with loyal local audiences. He lived openly as a gay man in a time when doing so was exceptionally risky, a quiet act of defiance that echoed through his bold musical persona. On October 28, 1991, Billy Wright passed away at the age of 73. Though the exact cause of death was never publicly specified, his declining health in later years mirrored the hardships many early black entertainers faced: a lack of recognition, financial instability, and systemic neglect. Today, Billy Wright's spirit echoes through every flamboyant performer who refuses to conform, and his musical fingerprints remain embedded in the DNA of rock and roll itself. Max Robinson, Tuoi Kai Mat, 49 to 1988. Max Robinson broke barriers and made history as the first black man to anchor a nightly network newscast in the United States. Born on May 1, 1939, in Richmond, Virginia, Robinson's career in journalism was defined by both brilliance and battles against entrenched racism. In 1978, he became co-anchor of ABC's World News Tonight, sharing the desk with Frank Reynolds and Peter Jennings, a monumental achievement in an industry long dominated by white faces. Robinson brought a distinctive voice and style to the news, insisting that stories about black communities receive the same respect and depth as any others. He fiercely advocated for honest representation, often clashing with network executives over what he perceived as systemic bias. His professionalism, charisma, and sharp intellect made him a role model for aspiring black journalists nationwide. Behind the camera, however, Robinson grappled with profound personal struggles. The constant pressure to represent an entire race on national television, coupled with the internalized stress of battling discrimination, took a toll. By the mid-1980s, his health deteriorated, exacerbated by alcohol abuse and depression. Though intensely private, Robinson was diagnosed with HIV, likely contracted through heterosexual contact, countering stereotypes about the epidemic. Refusing to publicly disclose his condition for fear of stigma, Robinson quietly battled the disease while continuing to work sporadically. His physical decline became visible in his final months, but he maintained a dignified presence until the very end. On December 20, 1988, Max Robinson died from complications related to AIDS at the age of 49. His death was met with muted acknowledgement compared to his groundbreaking achievements. Yet his influence remains profound. Every time a black journalist commands the anchor chair without apology, it is a testament to Robinson's courage, sacrifices, and the path he paved through uncharted territory. Jermaine Stewart, Tuoi Kai Mat, 39 to 1997. Jermaine Stewart's infectious energy and joyful spirit made him a standout figure in 1980s pop music. Born on September 7, 1957, in Columbus, Ohio, Stewart started his career as a backup dancer for prominent artists like Shalimar and the Chi-Lites before finding his own voice as a singer. His breakout hit, We Don't Have to Take Our Clothes Off, released in 1986, became an anthem of restraint and respect during the height of the AIDS crisis, offering a refreshing alternative to the era's often hypersexualized pop narratives. Stewart's music blended upbeat rhythms with thoughtful messages, a reflection of his gentle nature and personal struggles. As a black gay man navigating the entertainment world during a time of rampant homophobia and misinformation about HIV/AIDS, Stewart kept much of his private life guarded. Publicly, he remained vibrant and optimistic, maintaining a polished image even as he faced growing personal challenges. In the early 1990s, Stewart's visibility faded as musical tastes shifted and rumors about his health circulated within the industry. Although he never openly discussed his HIV-positive status, friends and collaborators noted his declining energy and frailer appearance during his final years. Despite his illness, Stewart continued to work on music projects, demonstrating unwavering commitment to his art. On March 17, 1997, Jermaine Stewart died at the age of 39 from AIDS-related complications. His death received limited media attention, a stark contrast to the joy he had once brought to audiences worldwide. Today, Jermaine Stewart's legacy is not just found in the timeless grooves of his biggest hits, but also in the quiet dignity with which he lived. His music serves as a reminder that even in the face of widespread fear and misunderstanding, it is possible to advocate for love, self-respect, and hope without ever shouting. Alvin Ailey, Tuoi Kai Mat, 58 to 1989. Alvin Ailey forever changed the landscape of modern dance by bringing the African-American cultural experience to the global stage. Born on January 5, 1931, in Rogers, Texas, Ailey grew up in a racially segregated America, where art was often an inaccessible dream for black children. Yet through talent, perseverance, and vision, he carved out a revolutionary space where movement became a powerful medium for storytelling and liberation. In 1958, he founded the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater, a company that would become a beacon of diversity and excellence in the arts. His masterpiece Revelations, created in 1960, remains one of the most celebrated works in dance history, an emotional journey through African-American spirituals, gospel, and blues. Behind the acclaim, however, Ailey lived a deeply private life. As a closeted gay man in a hostile cultural climate, he battled profound loneliness and depression. These internal struggles were further compounded by the rising specter of the HIV/AIDS epidemic, which devastated artistic communities in the 1980s. Ailey was diagnosed with HIV but chose to keep his illness a secret, fearing the stigma would overshadow his contributions. Even as his health declined, he continued to work, choreographing and mentoring younger dancers with tireless passion. Determined that his legacy be defined by his art, not by his illness, he instructed his doctors to list the cause of death as a blood disorder to shield him from posthumous discrimination. On December 1, 1989, World AIDS Day, Alvin Ailey passed away at the age of 58 from AIDS-related complications. His death marked a profound loss, but his impact is immortal. Today, the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater stands as a living tribute to his genius, ensuring that generations continue to dance not just for entertainment, but for truth, resilience, and liberation. Brad Davis, Tuoi Kai Mat, 41 to 1991. Brad Davis was a rising star whose fearless performances left an indelible mark on American cinema. Born on November 6, 1949, in Tallahassee, Florida, Davis broke through with his electrifying role in Midnight Express, 1978, earning a Golden Globe Award and widespread acclaim. His portrayal of Billy Hayes, a man imprisoned in Turkey, showcased an intense vulnerability and ferocity that promised a long and storied career. Throughout the late 1970s and early 1980s, Davis continued to tackle complex roles, often portraying outsiders and anti-heroes with remarkable depth. However, behind his Hollywood persona, he lived a far more complicated private life. Davis struggled with substance abuse, and as the AIDS epidemic emerged, he found himself caught in the shadow of another devastating battle. In the mid-1980s, Davis was diagnosed as HIV positive, a diagnosis he and his wife, Susan Bluestein, chose to keep secret due to the overwhelming stigma associated with the disease. At a time when an HIV diagnosis could destroy a career overnight, Davis continued to work sporadically, even as his health deteriorated. Refusing to be defined by illness or by Hollywood silence, Davis made a courageous choice. Rather than allowing AIDS to slowly rob him of his dignity and autonomy, he chose physician-assisted euthanasia, dying peacefully at home in the arms of his wife on September 8, 1991, at the age of 41. Brad Davis's death was a defiant act of agency in a world that too often treated AIDS victims with fear and shame. Though his name is not as widely celebrated today, Davis remains a symbol of resistance against both an unforgiving industry and a cruel epidemic. His life and work stand as a testament to the power of authenticity, even when the cost is immense. Michael Jeter, Tuoi Kai Mat, 50 to 2003. Michael Jeter was a rare talent whose wide range and heartfelt performances left lasting impressions across television, film, and theater. Born on August 26, 1952, in Lawrenceburg, Tennessee, Jeter defied traditional leading man expectations with his small stature, expressive face, and boundless energy, carving out a unique space in Hollywood. Jeter's breakthrough came with his Emmy-winning role as the quirky Herman Styles in the sitcom Evening Shade. Later, he delivered unforgettable performances in films like The Green Mile, 1999, Open Range, 2003, and The Fisher King, 1991, where he displayed a delicate balance of humor, vulnerability, and raw emotional depth. Openly gay during a time when many actors remained closeted, Jeter faced not only the industry's subtle homophobia but also the personal burden of an HIV diagnosis. Contracting the virus in the early 1990s, he continued working without publicizing his health struggles, choosing instead to live with quiet dignity. As HIV/AIDS treatments improved in the 1990s, Jeter managed to survive longer than many of his contemporaries, but the illness still left its mark. Despite physical challenges, he remained fiercely committed to his craft, often pushing through grueling filming schedules even when fatigued. His performance in The Green Mile, full of pathos and humanity, stands as one of his finest achievements. On March 30, 2003, Michael Jeter passed away at the age of 50, reportedly from complications related to epilepsy, although his history with HIV was widely acknowledged as having strained his health. His death was a profound loss to the entertainment community, depriving audiences of an actor capable of bringing heart and authenticity to every role he inhabited. Today, Michael Jeter's work reminds us that greatness often comes in unexpected forms. His life and career serve as enduring proof that authenticity, courage, and kindness are the true measures of artistic success. Fela Kuti, Tuoi Kai Mat, 58 to 1997. Fela Anikulapo Kuti was much more than a musician. He was a revolutionary voice for oppressed people worldwide. Born on October 15, 1938, in Abeokuta, Nigeria, Kuti merged Yoruba rhythms with jazz, funk, and traditional African music to create Afrobeat, a genre that became his weapon against political corruption and social injustice. Throughout the 1970s and 1980s, Kuti fearlessly criticized Nigeria's military regimes, often at great personal cost. He endured beatings, imprisonment, and the destruction of his communal compound, Kalakuta Republic, where he lived with his large band and followers. His music, particularly albums like Zombie and Expensive Shit, pulled no punches in condemning authoritarian rule and police brutality, earning him both adoration and persecution. Despite his political activism, Kuti was deeply skeptical of Western medicine and science. As the HIV/AIDS epidemic spread across Africa in the 1990s, he dismissed it as a Western conspiracy aimed at controlling black populations. His refusal to acknowledge the disease's reality had tragic consequences. By the mid-1990s, Kuti's health had visibly deteriorated. He lost significant weight, grew increasingly frail, and became reclusive. On August 2, 1997, Fela Kuti died at the age of 58. Though his brother, a respected doctor, confirmed that Fela died of AIDS-related complications, no official medical documentation was ever released, and some of his followers continued to dispute the cause of death. Regardless of the circumstances, Kuti's passing marked the end of an era. Yet, his influence is immortal. Afrobeat's pulse continues to inspire global protest movements, and his defiant spirit remains a rallying cry for those demanding justice. Fela Kuti lived, and died, as a revolutionary, refusing to bend even in the face of invisible enemies. Merit Buttrick, Tuoi Kai Mat, 1929. Merit Buttrick's career, though brief, left a lasting impression on audiences who recognized his charisma and emotional range. Born on September 3, 1959, in Gainesville, Florida, Buttrick grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area before moving to Los Angeles to pursue acting. He achieved widespread recognition for his portrayal of David Marcus, the son of Captain James T. Kirk, in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, 1982, and Star Trek III, The Search for Spock, 1984. His performances imbued the character with a raw, youthful energy that endeared him to the Star Trek fandom. Outside of the franchise, Buttrick earned praise for his daring and layered role in the sitcom Square Pegs as Johnny Slash, a quirky outsider who resonated with misfit audiences. Buttrick's career showed immense promise, but behind the scenes, he struggled with his identity and the escalating HIV/AIDS epidemic that struck particularly hard within the arts community. As an openly gay man among friends but closeted in the broader Hollywood industry, Buttrick navigated an environment fraught with fear and prejudice. In the late 1980s, as his health began to decline, he increasingly withdrew from public life. Details surrounding his diagnosis remained private, and at the time, discussions about AIDS-related illnesses were often shrouded in stigma and euphemism. Friends and colleagues later confirmed that Buttrick battled the disease with quiet resilience. On March 17, 1989, Merit Buttrick passed away at the age of 29 from complications related to AIDS. His death was a profound loss not only for Star Trek fans but also for an entertainment industry that never fully had the chance to witness his artistic potential realized. Arthur Ashe, Tuoi Kai Mat, 49 to 1993. Arthur Ashe was a towering figure both on and off the tennis court, breaking barriers with grace, intellect, and unshakable integrity. Born on July 10, 1943, in Richmond, Virginia, Ashe rose through the ranks of a segregated sports world to become the first black man to win the US Open, 1968, the Australian Open, 1970, and Wimbledon, 1975. Beyond his historic victories, Ashe was deeply committed to civil rights and humanitarian causes. He spoke out against apartheid in South Africa, advocated for health education, and became a global ambassador for racial equality and compassion. His activism was as disciplined and determined as his playing style, measured, thoughtful, yet quietly revolutionary. In 1983, following a heart surgery, Ashe contracted HIV through a contaminated blood transfusion, a tragic consequence of the era's limited blood screening protocols. For several years, he kept his diagnosis private, choosing to focus on his young family and philanthropic efforts. However, when a newspaper threatened to expose his condition in 1992, Ashe courageously went public. Rather than retreat, he used the revelation to advocate for HIV/AIDS awareness, launching the Arthur Ashe Foundation for the Defeat of AIDS and tirelessly speaking to schools, policymakers, and communities about the need for education and empathy. On February 6, 1993, Arthur Ashe passed away at the age of 49 due to AIDS-related pneumonia. His death sent ripples across the globe, mourned by the sports world and human rights communities alike. Ash's enduring legacy is not just measured by trophies, but by the doors he opened and the dignity with which he faced even life's cruelest trials. Joe Higgs, Tuoi Kai Mat, 59 to 1999. Joe Higgs, often hailed as the father of reggae, was a critical yet underappreciated architect of Jamaica's most famous musical export. Born on June 3, 1940, in Kingston, Higgs mentored countless young musicians, including Bob Marley, Peter Tosh, and Bunny Wailer, shaping the early sound of reggae with his distinctive songwriting, vocal coaching, and deep spiritual influence. In the 1950s and 1960s, Higgs found modest success performing with Roy Wilson as Higgs and Wilson, but it was his behind-the-scenes work that truly cemented his legacy. Teaching harmony, composition, and discipline to a generation of reggae artists, Higgs became an essential but often invisible pillar of the movement. Despite his contributions, Higgs struggled financially and professionally, overshadowed by the international stardom of those he had once coached. He eventually moved to the United States in search of greater opportunities but remained largely on the margins of the music industry. Higgs battled health challenges quietly during his later years. Though cancer was officially cited as the cause of his death, his declining health during a period when the Caribbean and African diaspora faced rampant AIDS-related complications has led some to speculate about multiple underlying conditions. On December 18, 1999, Joe Higgs died at the age of 59. His death, like much of his life, was marked by quiet dignity rather than public spectacle. Though he never achieved the fame he richly deserved, Higgs's fingerprints are evident on nearly every classic reggae track that continues to resonate today. Without Joe Higgs, the soundscape of modern music would be profoundly diminished. Roy Cohn, Tuoi Kai Mat, 59 to 1986. Roy Cohn was one of the most controversial political figures of the 20th century, remembered less for triumphs than for the wreckage he left behind. Born on February 20, 1927, in New York City, Cohn first rose to prominence as chief counsel to Senator Joseph McCarthy during the infamous Red Scare hearings, becoming synonymous with aggressive, ruthless tactics against alleged communists, and later, LGBTQ+ individuals. Throughout his life, Cohn projected an image of unwavering power, leveraging political connections to influence courts, campaigns, and corporate empires. Despite persistent rumors regarding his own homosexuality, he publicly championed anti-gay legislation and policies, fostering an environment of fear and repression. In the early 1980s, Cohn was diagnosed with HIV/AIDS but vehemently denied it, falsely claiming liver cancer to the end. His refusal to acknowledge the disease, whether due to pride, denial, or political calculation, mirrored the cruel hypocrisy that defined much of his career. Stripped of his law license in 1986 for unethical conduct, Cohn's fall from grace was swift and brutal. He died on August 2, 1986, at the age of 59 from AIDS-related complications, a man consumed by the very forces he had once unleashed on others. Roy Cohn's legacy remains deeply polarizing, a cautionary tale of how the pursuit of power at the expense of truth, empathy, and justice ultimately leads to self-destruction. His life and death are stark reminders of the dangers of unchecked ambition and the cost of living a lie. The stories of these 25 black legends remind us that talent, courage, and authenticity couldn't shield them from the devastating reach of HIV/AIDS. Their lives were filled with triumphs, yet their battles ended too soon because of a disease society once chose to ignore. But have we truly learned from their sacrifices, or is stigma still silently taking lives today? We invite you to share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Legends of Black Excellence, where we honor the voices history tried to silence and keep their legacies alive.